The morning air carried a cold bite as Eleanor Hayes stepped off the gravel road and onto the endless stretch of prairie that marked the beginning of nowhere and the end of everything she had ever known, her worn boots sinking slightly into the frost-kissed earth as she clutched the single suitcase that held the last fragments of a life she never truly belonged to, a life where she was first a wife, then a widow, and finally a burden cast out by in-laws who whispered behind closed doors that she was cursed, barren, incapable of giving her husband the children he had deserved, even though he had never once blamed her, never once asked more of her than the quiet companionship they shared before illness took him too soon, leaving behind a farm that his family believed must not pass into the hands of a woman who could not continue the line, and so they stripped her of home, dignity, and every possession of value until she was left with nothing but a few clothes, a faded photograph, and a broken heart held together by stubbornness and thin threads of hope. She walked without direction, letting the wind guide her over the hills until her strength gave out and she found herself collapsing beside an old wooden fence, bearing a sign that read, "Caldwell Ranch, visitors welcome," though she doubted very much that anyone here would welcome a woman like her. But too exhausted to continue, she leaned against the post and closed her eyes just as the rhythmic thudding of horse hooves approached, stopping abruptly in front of her as a shadow fell across her face. She opened her eyes to see a tall, rugged man with broad shoulders, a weathered hat, and eyes the color of dusk, concern etched into every line of his sun-darkened face as he dismounted and knelt beside her, asking if she was hurt, if she needed help. But before she could answer, a wave of dizziness overwhelmed her and the world faded into blackness. When she awoke, she was lying beneath a warm quilt in a cozy ranch house, the scent of cinnamon and pine lingering in the air as soft footsteps padded outside the door, whispering voices belonging to children who sounded unsure but curious. And then the man returned, Luke Caldwell, a widower raising 4 young children on his own after his wife passed 2 years earlier, leaving behind a house too large, grief too heavy, and responsibilities too great for one man to shoulder alone. He explained that she had fainted, that she was safe now, and that she could stay until she regained her strength. But Eleanor, conditioned by rejection and accustomed to being unwanted, insisted she would leave as soon as she was able, though her body betrayed her exhaustion as she attempted to stand and nearly collapsed again, prompting Luke to offer her a simple arrangement, room, and meals in exchange for helping with small household tasks. Nothing more, nothing inappropriate, nothing binding, just help, as his last housekeeper had left, and his children needed more attention than he could give alone. Hesitant but with nowhere else to go, Eleanor accepted, telling herself it was temporary, a few days at most, yet the days grew into a pattern, and the pattern blossomed into something like belonging as she woke, early to make breakfast with Hannah at her side, brushed Tommy's hair as he squirmed and made faces, taught Lily how to braid ribbons, and listened patiently to Wyatt's serious discussions about the ranch, the animals, and the mother he still missed so fiercely that sometimes he fell silent, mid-sentence, and looked away so one would see the tears he fought back. Luke watched all of this with a mixture of gratitude and wariness, uncertain of this gentle stranger, who moved quietly and smiled, rarely but carried a warmth that changed the energy of the entire home, turning chores into laughter, dinners into stories, and lonely nights into cozy evenings by the fire where the children, for the first time in months, slept without nightmares. Eleanor found herself growing attached despite her insistence that she must not, feeling her heart tug whenever little Lily climbed into her lap uninvited or whenever Tommy asked her to read his favorite cowboy tales. And the more she tried to remind herself that this was temporary, the deeper she sank into the comfort of the life she was helping to rebuild. One stormy night when the sky roared and lightning cracked across the plains, the children trembled in fear and Luke struggled to calm them, until Eleanor gathered them into her arms and sang softly, soothing them as though she had been part of their family forever. And Luke paused in the doorway watching the scene with a tenderness that startled even him. The next morning, as the storm cleared and sunlight seeped through the kitchen windows, Tommy tugged on Eleanor's dress and whispered shyly, "Can I call you Ma? Just sometimes." And the world seemed to freeze as Eleanor felt a tremor rush through her breath catching at a word she had long believed she would never hear directed at her, a word that had been used to wound her, judge her, dismiss her, never embrace her. She knelt slowly, placed a trembling hand on his cheek, and whispered, "If you want to," her voice nearly breaking. And when Tommy beamed and ran off to tell his siblings, Luke stood silently at the doorway, seeing not a burden, not a stray, not a temporary helper, but a woman whose heart had stitched itself into the fabric of his family, without him realizing it. And though Eleanor still believed this sanctuary was temporary, something inside her, something soft, fragile, and hopeful, began to imagine the impossible, that she might, after all her losses, have finally found a place she could call home. And if you're loving this story so far and want to hear how her journey continues, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay connected for